Yeah. Okay. Sorry if you didn't. No. What shift did you want to take? How are you? So, good morning, Rotarians and guests. Welcome to the Rotary Club of Hudson. I'm Ron Strobel, the Sergeant at Arms. Our invocation this morning is by Marilyn Orr.
When I was growing up, way back in the day, between grades 2 and 12, I was taught by the School Sisters of St. Francis from Milwaukee. And so when I am in trouble, I go to my favorite, the Prayer for Peace by St. Francis. Lord, make me an instrument of your peace. Where there is hatred, let me sow love. Where there is injury, pardon. Where there is doubt, faith. Where there is despair, hope. Where there is darkness, light. Where there is sadness, joy. O divine Master, grant that I may not so much seek to be consoled as to console, to be understood as to understand, to be loved as to love. For it is in giving that we receive, it is in pardoning that we are pardoned, and it is in dying that we are born to eternal life. Amen.
Thank you, Marilyn. And to lead us in the pledge and four-way test, Jim Lang.
Morning, Rotarians. Please join me in the Pledge of the Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And now the four-way test of the things we think, say, and do. Number one, is it the truth? Number two, is it fair to all concerned? Number three, will it build goodwill and better friendships? Number four, will it be beneficial to all concerned? Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. Chris, do we have any visitors? No visitors today. Okay. Our president, Father Joe Boisel.
Good morning, everyone. Right. Just a few announcements. First thing I'm gonna do is bring up Tom. He has a health announcement about his dad, Phil.
Bit surprising, but a good bit of news for my dad. He had a mild heart attack on Sunday, and Hudson EMS did a great job getting him down to the hospital. They got 3 stents put in, and he's home doing well. He may even be watching this morning. So everybody wave to Phil. I don't know if you can see it, but that's I'm glad to report he's doing well. So thank you.
Thank you. And then Ed has an announcement here about Santa on the Green, I'm assuming, right?
I got a phone call yesterday from Mrs. Claus, and she wanted to make sure that we were getting our sign-up sheets out and getting ready to go. The event is on December 3rd, which is a Saturday. The shifts are on here. They're basically an hour and a half. We have 2 elf captains, Ron Strobel and Catherine Sein, that will be overseeing the groups. And Mr. and Mrs. Claus will be arriving at 9 in the morning and leaving at around 3 that particular day. We're going to be again at the gazebo, but our backup is going to be the scout cabin that will be empty And the big thing for that is if we do run into inclement weather to kind of get it decorated for the event. So we'll have to hustle in regards to that. The pickup of the equipment will happen on Friday, and we need people that have kind of a big trunk. So if you have a SUV or a Odyssey type of vehicle or a truck, that would be great, because it'll have to be stored, and then we'll report to the site on Saturday morning with all the equipment. So we're looking forward to it, and so is Santa. So without further ado, we'll be passing this around for the next 2 weeks. I will be out of town and hopefully on Zoom, and Father Joe will have the sign-up chart. So thank you.
Santa's a big deal on the green here. So yes, we want to do that. A couple of announcements then. Today the foundation board meets. So if you're a part of that board, encouraged to stay. If you're not a part of the board, you're interested, you want to see it, you're welcome to stay. So foundation board meets immediately following this meeting. Second announcement, also the gala committee meets following this meeting. If you wanted to be gala, however you say it, enthusiastically involved, plan to stay for that meeting as well. Anything else I need to say about that, Marilyn? Nope. Good enough. Thirdly, we have today is the last week, your last day to gather up a collection for a Haven of Rest in Akron. We're looking for socks and for money, and I can't remember. There seems like there was one other thing that was perhaps on that list. Maybe that was primarily the thing. So, and I have some out in my car. So whoever is collecting there, I'll run and get those before we leave. Any other announcements that I'm forgetting or I don't know about? No. If not, I think we'll move on to John is coming to do some interviews for us. We need to maybe move some chairs up here, don't we, John? Yeah. You got it. You wanna come on up? Yeah. Maybe both of them now. Shall we get the, you want to get the lift?
I was just gonna hop straight up.
Yeah.
Therapy coming along, Dave. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Good morning, Rotarians. You guys like doing this? I like doing this. This is kind of fun. There you go. You bet. So I'm not only interviewing James, I'm his personal chauffeur this morning. So that's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
And I can't leave, obviously.
I guess we'll call him a captive audience here. So, but it's my pleasure to have James, who really needs no introduction, but I'm going to ask him some questions. Just an idea of getting to know him. You know, from a personal observation, since I've been in Rotary, James, you are in everything and do everything. As I know you professionally, you retired from Heinen's after how many years were you there?
So I was 19 years at Heinen's.
Okay. And what got you into doing that?
Into going to Heinen's?
Yeah.
Oh,
Aside from wanting to eat and stuff.
Yeah,
For work. What did you do? What did
let
you
me
do?
tell you that the food at the headquarters is great because they don't test produce there. They test like the bakery and the others. Anyway, so it all started, I actually worked for a market research firm testing new products called Bases. And this was out in Cincinnati and then in Connecticut. And then I worked for a consulting firm and then for General Foods. Remember good old Maxwell House and Country Time and Kool-Aid and all that sort of thing. And they were bought by Philip Morris, who bought Kraft. And so I've been in that food industry and was very involved in developing for presentations for new products, analyzing spending. I was with the beverage division. We spent, I think, about $500 million on promotion. So would analyze all that and do presentations to retailers. And then I worked with our division, worked with food brokers, and they went direct on all our businesses. This was was living in Connecticut, working in White Plains, New York. And so my job was eliminated, and they said, okay, well, we have this job with our regional office out in Cleveland. And I said, who did I tick off? I have to go to Cleveland. And so we came to Cleveland and we moved to Hudson. And
And how long ago was that? How long you been in town?
so that was 24 years ago.
Okay.
And the kids, my oldest was in 5th grade and the youngest was still 2.5.
So 2 kids?
3 kids.
3 kids. Okay.
And so we come out here, the cost of living is way less than the East Coast. The schools are great. Everything's wonderful. People back east in Connecticut were like, what is Hudson like? I said, well, it's like a Disney version of Connecticut. It's like perfect Connecticut, you know? And people complained about the traffic and taxes. I'm like, try living in Connecticut, working in New York, and commuting for traffic and taxes. I think people who've lived out East Coast probably can relate. So anyway, so it's wonderful. And then they actually closed that office and said, we'll move you back east. And we said, we don't want to leave.
Mm.
So that's when I got, I had called on all the retailers. So I got offers from Giant Eagle and Wegmans and so forth. And got the offer from Tom and Jeff Heinen and went to work there. So I started there doing both, excuse me, what's called category management, where you do the buying of products. So I covered tons of categories, everything from pasta sauce to coffee, candy, which was not good for me.
Yeah.
Not the samples.
Sampling.
Yeah. It was fun. And then also I did all the research on consumer behavior, price and promotion, effectiveness, and that sort of thing. And then as that evolved, I focused totally on business analysis and was there, ended up 19 years. And this year decided to retire, and we had planned well for it because I didn't use John, but I can testify to the value of financial planners and investment counselors and that sort of thing, because we were well set. And I've done a little bit of consulting for companies on new product launches, but basically doing all the other activities.
And so, you know, I use the word rewiring in my practice instead of retiring. And you know, you've been so busy in so many things. I mean, you're also very involved in the school board.
Yep.
Right?
So school board been on for a little over 10 years. And then my seat will be up for re-election next year along with Mr. Tobin. So, and it's been really rewarding, even the last couple of kind of weird years, really rewarding, stepping back and looking at the accomplishments. Love to take credit, but it's really a great organization of having, you know, the accomplishments academically and, you know, all the things that the kids are doing is just amazing. And we've seen it here at Rotary, but also putting through the master plan where they're able to complete $83 million worth of building, new building and improvements on time and on budget.
$83 billion.
83 million.
Wow.
It feels
No,
like
I thought I said million. I
Yeah,
said billion.
but
Yeah.
yeah. So billion here, billion there, you're talking about
Yeah,
big money, right?
yeah.
But anyway, so yeah, so it's been super rewarding to be on that.
I mean, thanks to both of you for what you're doing to make our community what it is with the kids and the attraction of our schools to this town and the beneficiaries that we are with the real estate values. So that's pretty amazing. Thanks for doing that. How did you even get involved in doing that?
So always been involved in volunteering with the schools. You know, when my kids went through there, my eldest graduated Hudson. The middle one went to Hudson through middle school and then went to reserve. And the youngest was 13-year club. And then a friend of ours, Joy York, who was on the board, excellent school board member, was not running again. And I had been involved in things like levy campaigns and that sort of thing. So I said, oh, is someone running? She said, well, why don't you run? And I actually talked to a lot of people very involved, head of PTO, head of the, you know, people, and they were all, no, why don't you go ahead? So we ran, and there were 4 of us for 2 seats. And at the time it was Gary Mushak and I won that one. And I got to say that election, I mean, it was very different tone than it is today. I felt like we were all very respectful of each other and really focused on the issues and not personalities. And then, so hopefully we can kind of get back to that kind of thing again.
Well, that would be nice, wouldn't it?
And so and then when Gary Mushak left, Tom Tobin ran for that seat. And so we've been running the last 2 elections we got on.
And how long have you been a Rotarian?
So actually, at the time, when I think it was Christina Roedner was elected, there was an open seat on city council. And so I interviewed for it, but then they went with Dan Williams, who admittedly actually was excellent. And so Bill Woodward, at the time said, well, if you want to kind of get involved, you ought to join Rotary and just get to know everyone. And that was before I ran for school board. And then when I looked at, I was like, school board looks way more interesting than city council. Nothing against city council, but it feels like they're arguing for hours about whether that easement should be like 1 foot or 2 foot or something.
Right.
Whereas school boards, like, getting presentations by kids and stuff.
Yeah.
So anyway, so that got me into Rotary. And because I worked up, outside of Hudson, it was really able to get this connection to the Hudson community and to the service and that sort of thing. And actually, my dad was in Rotary back in Highland Park, where I grew up. And they had a newsletter, a printed newsletter, and I have a copy of the one when he joined that had listed the family and everyone. So there is a tradition in my family.
That is really neat. So what are some of your hobbies? I mean, I know of rowing. We talked about that on the way over this morning. I was fascinated because you had somebody come in and speak to us when we were in the other location.
Right,
about
the
rowing.
director of the rowing club.
And so what got you into that?
So I rowed in college,
And where was college again?
University of Pennsylvania.
Okay.
And so actually, I did Wharton undergraduate, was in the rowing program, and Phil Tobin was also undergrad, did Wharton undergraduate, was in the rowing program. So we weren't actually on the team at the exact same time, but
Different time.
yeah, I think
Wood boats, plastic boats. I'm only kidding.
when he was there, Ben Franklin had just founded. Phil, if you're watching, I'm just joking. So anyway, and actually my older brother had rowed at Harvard, and it was interesting back then you bet shirts, right? And if you lost a shirt. So I started on the Penn team. My brother goes in his drawer and said, "Would you like a couple Penn shirts?" And I said, "You could keep your blankety blank. I'll get myself some Harvard shirts."
Yeah.
Which, unfortunately, I did not get, but anyway, so I started there and then got into sculling, and it's a sport you can do forever. I mean, you can basically, actually, I had knee surgery, and actually that was not the cause of it, because it really is very good. So actually rowed all the way up to about a week before my surgery. I have a single that I row on the river, and then got school board. I'm co-president of my temple. When I retired, I said I could help out a little more, and somehow that morphed into co-president.
Here, you're the president. Yeah.
Yeah, so I think all the Rotarian presidents could probably testify that's they said, "Oh, I can help out." And then other activities, I'm involved in Soccer for All, which is this wonderful program. I had been on the Soccer Association board, a treasurer for years and years, and that we have 2 seasons, and we have training for special needs kids, everything from Downs to autism to so and so forth, and from young all the way up to 22. And we teach them soccer skills, and then we have games, and it's just a wonderful activity. So that's over at Barlow, so I do that. And then we talked about involved in First Serve.
Yeah.
So Representative Temple in that effort that's led by the Congregational Church and also with the Islamic Center. And then obviously Rotary, and try and involve as much as possible as I can here. And just every other activity. And now that I'm retired, it feels like, oh, I could.
You're a doer. I mean, you're the embodiment of service above self, as I sit here and listen to what you do. So it's pretty impressive. And so, and along the way, it's kind of a two-part question. First part is, what would you say is maybe some of the best advice that you've ever received?
Well, so in terms of life advice, I'd have to think. This sounds a little prosaic, but my dad used to have this saying, it's better than a poke in the eye. It's sort of like, but he's sort of saying, that you appreciate everything, that you get. And the other advice actually that I constantly remember is that our superintendent would always pass on advice from his father, Phil Herman, from Bill's father. In fact, when I met his father, I said, I think I know every saying you have. But he had this great one. He said the two best times to plant a tree are 10 years ago and today.
Yeah.
And really that saying is, you could sit around and say, oh, I should have done this, or we should have done this a while ago. That's past. So fine, do it now. And don't put it off. And I think those are two of the best, probably.
So the second part of that question, in my business, I talk about legacy a lot. And so what would you say would be advice that you would give to your grandkids if they saw this video 20 years from now?
I'd say that really, obviously do well for yourself. And I think, that's part of, learn and get educated but really the idea of being involved in helping others, because that's really a legacy. And obviously I feel like, hopefully I have grandkids. I have three daughters,
Right.
And that would be a great, I feel that's a legacy, is obviously
Sure.
the family, but I think it's really when you could step back and see the things that you've done, the people you've helped, and lives that you hopefully have helped out. I think that's the legacy that a lot of us would like to leave. And a lot, when I look around the room, really everyone I see here is, has that legacy.
James, from all appearances and in our conversation here this morning, I am thinking you are leaving a huge legacy with the service to others that you are doing with your life. And so it's been a real pleasure to sit here with you for 10 minutes.
Thank you very much. Yeah.
All right. Thank you. Marilyn Orr. Yeah, that's right. That's right. Well, you'll see she's actually the rose between two thorns here. So there you go.
The gardening reference is appreciated.
Yeah. Again, a person who needs no introduction to our group, but please join me in welcoming Marilyn to our fireside chat. Maybe we could have our tech guy put a fire in the background or something like that. But
Thank
enjoyed
you.
being with you this morning.
Thank you.
Marilyn, for those that don't know, give us your background. So tell us about your family first.
Okay, I'm the oldest of 6. And in many ways, I feel a real kindred spirit with Mandy because I'm a farm girl. I grew up in rural dryland, Nebraska, and I attended a one-room country school for the first 2 years, and then got on a bus and an hour later arrived at the parochial school.
Wow.
That was 10 miles away, but we kind of took a long route to get there. It's a very, very small school. There were 18 in my high school graduating class. So, going to a large university was not really optimal. I went to the College of St. Mary in Omaha, which is where our family sent all of its girls. And it was all women at that point. And I graduated with a degree in medical technology. And I was very active at the school. I played volleyball and basketball. I was active in music, choirs and piano and opera and children's musicals. I wanted to do it all because the high school experience wasn't exactly optimal, if you know what I mean. So there were many more opportunities available in Omaha. I married my high school sweetheart. I met him at a 4-H convention when I was 15. And the first couple of years of our relationship were done via mail. Mail, because phone calls were so expensive. And I didn't see a lot of him until I got to Omaha. He attended the University of Nebraska. His father was a professor there and also very active with the 4-H program. But lots of people say they learned to cook and sew. I found a husband. And after we finished with college, I was a medical technologist working in the hospital laboratory, right at the cusp of computerization. So things were changing rapidly in the lab as the instrumentation was becoming much more sophisticated, and we were moving away from what I call bench chemistry to machinery, and that would do everything. And before you know it, we had barcodes. My husband, on the other hand, joined the Air Force. His draft number was 32, and Vietnam was raging. And so he was an ROTC candidate. And by the time he finished his training as a navigator on a B-52, Vietnam was essentially over. He did go to the Philippines and to Guam for training, and he ended up in Thailand in 73 when Henry Kissinger was in Paris negotiating the peace. But my husband loved the Air Force. He liked the structure. He liked the camaraderie of men, and he found a real home there. And it became our career. Our first station was in Grand Forks, North Dakota. Now, you have to understand that's 60 miles from the Canadian border. And I knew that my husband was flying nuclear weapons around. And I said, hey, honey, if things kind of go south, where should I go? Should I take the kids and go back to my parents? And he said, are you thinking? He said, Gavin's Point Dam is right there. It's going to be a prime target. He said, sneak into Canada. So, but anyway, we were there. We spent 8 years in California. My husband had a remote tour to Korea, in which we were not allowed to accompany. And then we finalized the career in Dayton, Ohio at Wright Pat. I had been working in California as a volunteer and as a part-time medical technologist. And then when my youngest child, I have 3 boys, was in 2nd grade, I accepted a full-time job there in lab administration of an outpatient department. Our hospital was the only hospital in Sacramento that was actually adding staff because we grew an outpatient department. We were working for Alta Bates, was the corporation. They were headquartered out of Berkeley, a fairly large hospital system. And we had 10 nursing homes and 2 psychiatric hospitals. And that's where we got our work. So it was a very interesting thing. But when I got to Dayton, Ohio, and I showed my resume around, I couldn't find a job that was compatible with family life. And so I made a career shift. I met with a headhunter and moved into managing private physician practices. And that became my life for the next 29 years. And that's also when I got introduced to Rotary. I was managing a group in Xenia, Ohio. It was 12 physicians and about 120 staff. We had multiple departments, and I was hired essentially as the operating manager. The group was owned by a hospital, but I had no experience doing any of that. And of course, I'm from Nebraska, not from Ohio. I know nothing about Xenia. And so when my insurance guy suggested that I come to a Rotary meeting, it was 1989, and Rotary had just been informed by the Supreme Court that they needed to add women. And I was the 2nd woman invited into the Rotary Club of Xenia. And, things went well because that club was like this club, about the same size. And they had much of the same, mission to talk about the community and what was going on in the community. And it was a good way for me to find out. I also found that the Rotarians would tell me when my clinic screwed up. So that was helpful. Over my work span, I worked for 5 different groups. Smallest was 4, largest was 32. And I had operating budgets up to $48 million. So I retired in 2016, but I moved to Hudson in 2015 from Cincinnati, and started looking for stage 2.
What brought you to Hudson from Cincinnati? What was that?
Well, I was looking at where my grandkids were. I had 3 grandkids in Denver, Colorado, 3 here in Hudson, and none in Charlottesville, Virginia. Charlottesville and Denver are rather expensive places to live. Denver is very congested and tight. The lot sizes there are very small and freeway traffic is bad all the time. It's growing rapidly. And I wasn't sure that my kids were going to stay there. They've talked about moving if the right opportunity ever came up. And my son has clearly indicated he does not plan to retire there. So Hudson. I did work for University Hospitals at one point, so we were familiar with Hudson. We lived here on Kendall Park Road for about 15 years, half a mile from the ledges in the national park. So I knew the quality of life. I knew that it had things that I liked. I knew that it had a vibrant arts community. I love the Cleveland Art Museum. I love Apollo's Fire. I really, really enjoy the Hudson Library and the quality of the speakers that they get. And I knew that there were opportunities for volunteerism here. And that was what I was looking for.
I think we're all beneficiaries of you coming to Hudson, is the way
Yeah.
you ran this chapter.
Yeah, I'm enjoying what I'm doing. And I'm getting busier all the time. I had thought that I might kind of kick back a bit, but that doesn't seem to be happening. We're having great fun at the library. In case any of you don't know, I run the Amazon sales. That's a new thing that we've started. And we anticipate that this month we're going to go over $20,000 in profit from that venture in the last 2.5 years. So it's taken off pretty good. I'm pretty pleased with it. And it's interesting.
No, I learned something about you when we were talking about a flag at one point in time, and you
Yeah.
have done something. You have a
I
flag
did.
that's gone to every station with you or something.
You're absolutely right. In the year before my husband retired, I secured a flag that had flown over the Capitol. And I sent it to every single station that my husband or base that he had been at and asked them to fly it and to send me documentation. So it was in Grand Forks, North Dakota and flown on the day that the Strategic Air Command was decommissioned. It was flown in Korea. It was, and it was on my husband's casket.
Hmm.
So, yeah,
Wow.
it's pretty special.
So how do the kids fight over that flag? How does that?
Oh, I don't know. They're going to have to draw lots. They're going to have to draw lots, I think.
guess they are.
Yeah, I've already told them that, I'm not making that decision.
So Marilyn, I mean, you're just an impressive person in so many ways to me and all of us. I've kind of been ending with a question around advice. And so
Yeah.
you've been surrounding yourself with some pretty amazing people throughout your life. I mean, oldest of 6, growing up on a farm, taking a
Mhm.
school bus for an hour. What would you say is some of the best advice that you've received?
Well, my mother used to tell me that I needed to make myself happy, that other people couldn't do that for me. And in many ways, what she was telling me was that I should make my own decisions and that I shouldn't allow what other people said bother me. Because people could be critical, people could be aloof, but you kind of have to draw on your own self for the things that make you happy. And for many years, that was music. The piano, I love my piano. I took piano lessons actually in retirement. I'm not doing it right now. And what I found is that I would be assigned all these pieces and the only thing that I really practiced was Bach. And I would show up for my lesson and she'd go, well, how did it go? And I go, well, the Bach's doing pretty well, but the other things not so good. And in regard to what I tell my children,
Yes.
my experience as an employer really was that people don't show a lot of what's going on in their lives. I've been through an awful lot of unusual things, including a physician who committed suicide.
Hmm.
And when we brought in the counselors to deal with that issue, it was amazing how many of my employees had personal experience with either suicide attempts in either their immediate family or their extended family. So, the issue of being kind, because you just don't know what everyone else is going on. They put a face on, a cover I would say err on the side of being kind, because you just don't know what people are going through. They're not sharing everything with you.
Mhm.
So,
What great advice.
yeah, I'm very proud of my boys. Very, very proud of my boys. They're great fathers. And they're very involved in their communities as well. My son in Denver has been the president recently, a 3-year term of a not-for-profit that supports families in need. So they have a gala too.
Mm. So you're putting that together on the side? Is that what I'm?
Just a little on the aside. I'm very proud of my boys.
So as we wrap up, you just got back from a neat trip. Where'd you go?
Well, actually, the most recent trip was San Francisco.
Okay.
I took my granddaughter. When a kid turns 11 in our family, they get to go on a trip with their grandparents. And it's a tradition that my mother-in-law actually started with my own children. She brought them into Nebraska, and they would spend about 6 weeks with she and then also my family on the farm. And the boys had a wonderful time. At 11, you could still boss them around. And I took my granddaughter Ellie to San Francisco, and we went on a Road Scholar tour.
Mm.
And I walked the Golden Gate Bridge.
Fantastic.
Yeah, we had a wonderful time. And about a week and a half ago, I got a call from Ellie, and she said, "What was that we ate at the Chinese restaurant that I liked? The noodle thing." It was lo mein. So, here's a kid who normally would make them stop at Chick-fil-A to pick her up something if they were having Chinese that night. She's willing to try lo mein. So next summer, Brandon is 11, and we're going to New York City doing the same sort of thing. He
Fantastic.
wants to see the temple that is inside the Metropolitan Museum of Art. I didn't even know that was there.
Wow.
So it'll be fun. We're going
So
to take
age
you to
11,
Yankees.
just you and one of your grandchildren.
Yeah,
you
one
get
of the
to do a
kids.
trip.
We've been to Chicago a couple of times. San Francisco was the first other city that we've really ever done. But yeah.
Great.
Yeah, it's great fun.
Well, please
I
join me in
encourage you
thanking
all to
Mary.
do that one-on-one because, as I mentioned to some people on the trip, Ellie lives in Denver. She was born in Denver, and the only time she would see me was maybe 2 to 3 times a year. And I don't think that any one time I'd spent more than 2.5 hours with the child one-on-one. Here we had 6 days. We really got to know each other well, and it was fun. It was good.
Carolyn, we so adore you and thank you.
Thanks.
Enjoyed our time together.
This is fun.
And Jim, come on up. We have our last one here. There you go.
Thank you.
Yep. All right, please welcome Jim to the stage here. All right.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
I feel like what was that? Not Dr. Phil, but what was that show growing up? Gray haired guy.
Maury
like me,
Povich.
running around all the time. Phil, anyhow. Donahue, that's it.
Donahue.
Okay. So good morning.
Morning.
Thanks for agreeing to do this with us.
Welcome.
I've known you through Rotary, but before Rotary, I knew you through St. Mary's,
Mhm.
the men's club. And you and I would sit next to each other often and take orders for the seafood program. And so those were some fun times together in the golf league. But tell us a little bit about you. Let's start personal. So
Okay. Well,
what brought you to Hudson? How long you been in Hudson?
let me start with my family and then
That'd be
how we ended up coming
Just like
here.
the questions.
Yeah, right. I moved around. I was born in Connecticut, and my dad was transferred to Kansas, outside of Kansas City. And his dad was so upset they were moving. He said, "Son, you weren't promoted. You were farmed out." He goes, "Well, thanks, Dad. Appreciate that."
Yeah.
So we moved out to Kansas City, and I kind of grew up out there. I had 3 brothers. I was the oldest, and so my dad came home one day and he says, "We're all going out to dinner," and I'm entering my senior year, and so I've known a lot of people I've had since 3rd grade when I was there. So we ended up, and the dinner was to tell us we're moving to Warren, Ohio, wherever that is. Well, I was extremely upset, and it wasn't too long. My best friend and I were talking, and he said, "Well, you could come live with us," and I said, "Oh, Okay, so we went and talked to his parents. His parents said, yeah, but I think we could probably make that work. Are your parents okay with that? And I said, yeah, they're okay with it. And so before I even got home, my parents had a call from Mr. Romaine. So I walked in the door and they said, no, you're coming with us. So I moved my senior year. And so that was to Warren. And that's where I met my wife that senior year in high school. So that was great. After that, I went to Westminster College. Where's Bob? There he is. Bob Cramp went to Westminster and Dan Williams went to Westminster as well. So I was there 4 years. I was a bio pre-med major. I had MCATs and me didn't get along at all. So that didn't go as far. No, it didn't work. So I was at Westminster and I was a biology major. I played baseball for 4 years. I was a Sigma Nu. I was a dorm director for a freshman dorm, 130 freshmen, and I could spend hours talking about stories with freshmen coming in and the stuff that, oh my gosh, crazy. Also, friend and I started a spelunking club. Anybody been spelunking?
I know what it is.
I can't even imagine doing that today. It was some of the situations we got ourselves in. It was one where it was a crevice we had to get through. And the only way to get through is to go as far as you could, exhale, and then push up, take a breath, and you're pushed against the walls. I couldn't even dream of doing that today. So it shows you how smart you are when you're a kid. So I graduated, went to work.
And what was work?
Okay. After that, I'm a rare bird. I worked for one company my entire career, 35 years with Eli Lilly. I had about 8 or 9 different jobs. It's a great company in the sense that there was a lot of promote from within. They would get folks and move them into positions, and you kind of learn it and do it at the same time. So I had sales positions, sales director of sales. I was in project management. I had international marketing, a great way to see the world when someone else is paying for it,
Sure.
for you to go places. And so that was it. It was a lot of fun. It was a lot of challenge, and just had some great experiences during those years. I actually retired 3 times. After that, I went to work for, and Tom and I have talked about, I went to work with Sandler. It's kind of like training, business development, sales training, sales management. Worked with companies and tried to help them hire the right people. And so that was great. And after that, I spent 11 years at Hudson Job Search and just retired from that. And my replacement, Mike Polovic, he was here. I wasn't able to make it, but he came in and spoke about his new plans, and he's doing a great job there.
So in all that, seeing the world on somebody else's dime, where was your favorite place?
I would say it's a tie between Florence, Italy, and Madrid. It was fun. It was, I tell you, I was really impressed with Singapore though. It's as clean and everybody looks just the same there. It's just a pristine place to visit.
What about, so 11 years with the Hudson Job Search?
Yes.
That's a long time.
You know, what's scary was it was 11 years. And I can't even believe it. 11 years went by.
Is that right?
It was, I didn't know anything about Hudson Job Search. If you're not looking for a job, it's not something that catches your attention as an article in the hub. And so I was approached by Jim Gorian, who used to be a Rotarian here. Yeah. And I've known Jim for a long time. And he said, hey, we need a new president. Would you consider it? I said, I don't know anything about it. So I met with him, and I met with Joe Rusnak, whose place I took, and he's the reason I got into Rotary. And so Joe, he told me all the great stuff about it. And I said, well, how many hours a week does this involve? And he said, oh, about 5 a week. And so it was about 2 months later when I saw him, I said, am I doing something wrong? How did you do this in 5 years? He goes, or five hours a week. And he goes, oh, you believe me? Oh. I said, okay, great.
Was that Sandler sales training that he took?
Yes. Yes, exactly. So, but it's been it was a real labor of love. It was a lot of fun, and there's nothing better because I was an advisor for long, and I am still an advisor, but to have somebody you've been working with, not only a lot of people want to stay here. They don't want to have to move for a job. But if, in today's world, if you're 55, you need to get a job and you haven't looked for a job in 20 some years, it's a whole new world as you all knew than the way maybe you got your job 20, 25 years ago.
Right.
So,
So what do you do with your spare time?
well, I've got 2.5 hobbies. One of them's kind of gone. I play a lot of golf. I belong to Lake Forest, and so I spend time there. I also like to fish, and until about 5 years ago, I flew small planes.
Really?
Cessna 172s and 182s, and I just did it for fun. I wasn't get there kind of thing. It was just I love the idea of flying, and I moved 8 times, so I started and then I had to quit, and I traveled a lot, so it was kind of tough. It took some time.
Did you
but it was
own
fun.
a plane, or did you?
No,
was it
no,
one of those
uh,
plane clubs that
It
you?
was plane club
Okay.
at Kent State.
Yeah.
You kind of share lease it, and so you cut down it cut down the expenses in pure renting.
Right.
And so it's fun. And the other thing we do is I try and travel, go see my kids. I have 3 kids. I have a daughter who lives out in Arizona. She's a high school teacher, but she and her husband, even though he has still a full-time job, and that's her job now, they bought a franchise. It's called Wow Wow Lemonade. And it's from Hawaii, and they're the first one in their area of Phoenix, and it's doing really well. It's doing really well. And they have 2 kids. Their youngest daughter is now in college, and she's playing softball. She was a fantastic pitcher, and they have a son that's runs track and cross country. My son lives in Indianapolis. He actually works for Lilly too. He's a IT executive director of IT and medical of Lilly, and he's got 4 daughters, and in 2 years he will have 4 teenage daughters at the same time. And a funny story about 4 daughters is they had 3 daughters. They had 3 daughters, and he and his wife were like, "Oh, we want to have maybe another kid. We don't know." And they found some way of figuring out the odds are pretty good that they're going to have a son. Right. Well, no, it's still 50-50. Doesn't matter. So every time they had a child, they did not want to know the sex of the child. So at 4.5 months, sonogram time, they went to the obstetrician, and they went in there, and he says, "Do you guys still don't want to know? I just got the results of the sonogram." And she said, his wife goes, No, we don't want to know. We don't want to know. That's it." He's like, "Oh, okay." So the doctor says, "Julie, you got to come with me for a minute. James, just wait here. I'll be back." And I'll be back. So they leave. He looks over the desk, and there's a sonogram, the report, and it's just sitting there. And he goes, "I'm going to look." So he goes around and he looks at it, and he looks at it, and he goes, "I see something." So he's like, "What?" And so for 4.5 months, he's like, "Son." And nobody was more surprised when he was in the delivery room. "It's a girl." So it took him a couple months before he told me that story. And I went, "Oh my gosh, what made you think you could?" Oh, well, he's pretty confident, and he's kind of tech minded. So he thinks he knows what he's looking at.
Right.
And he had no clue.
Wow.
So her middle name is James.
I'll be
So that's funny. And I have a 3rd daughter who's lives in Eastlake, and she works in right now in daycare as an instruction person. They're trying to incorporate curriculum into preschool, and so she's in charge of pulling together curriculums and training people and all that. So I'm really proud of her. I'm proud of all my kids, but really proud of her because she went to Hudson. And she was like the poster child, and still is, for ADHD. And she just, the other 2, they just it was easy for her. And didn't really know quite what to do. So we learned early on that we tried different things and medications and all that, but it's still tough. And she still has it as an adult. And so she fights with it, but I'm proud of her because she's self-aware and knows what she needs to do.
6 grandkids?
6 grandkids.
Wow.
Yeah.
So, as we're wrapping up here, I always like to ask people what was the best advice they've ever been given. And if your 6 grandkids found this video 20 years from now,
Yeah,
what
okay.
advice you'd give them?
The smartest person I ever worked for, actually, he became governor of Indiana, Mitch Daniels, and he's president of Purdue. I worked for him for 2 years, and he had a pretty good sized desk, and there was never anything on the desk. You come meet with him, sit there, and he had one thing on his desk. It was a plaque, and it said, "None of us are as smart as all of us." And so you'd come there, and he would say, no matter what you were proposing, whatever he said, "Who have you talked to about this? Why did you pick them? What did they say?" And so it forced you to think through things and find out, because there's a lot of smart people around. And if you aren't tapping into all that and their experiences, you haven't formulated something that's as crisp as it should be. And as far as my grandkids, I think it's funny, today's world. I think it was easier growing up. I mean, you see kids with all the technology they do have and social media and the pressures and stuff that they are aware of and are confronted with that they don't even, you and I would never even thought about it when we were a kid. And then I heard something a while ago. It kind of ties a little bit to what Marilyn was saying, a little bit. And it's a statement of what others may think of you is none of your business. And so I like that because, you have to do your own self be true. And if you become so worried about what you think other people are thinking, which you don't, then you're going to handicap yourself a lot. So for sure, just be true to yourself.
Thanks, Jim, for coming up here this morning.
Thank you for inviting
Appreciate it.
me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Well, thank you to the 3 of you, James and Marilyn and Jim, for your contribution this morning. I love, John, I love the interviews. I love finding out about people and knowing what's going on and the lives that you have led that brought you to this place. And so for me, it's always a thrill to see when we have interviews that are going on. All right, time for Rotabuck. Who am I going to call up? I mean, do we have any nonpartisans in this group? Anybody who's not involved in this? You got no skin in the game. Raise a hand. Yeah. No. Oh, come on, Mandy, it's you. Come select the winner. Let me tell you my numbers in case you. I'm just. Yeah. Man, stop sucking up. All right.
599803.
803. All right. Payout is, I'll let you drop this off on your way by. It's $10. Congratulations on that. Oh, I guess I'll come down to you, Bill, with the oh, so close and yet so far away. All right, just slide that in my hand right there. I'll get it. Put it right there. There we go. Maybe next week. All right, so lots going on afterwards. So we're just going to end right here. Have a great day. Make a difference in somebody's life. Do something great. All right, go ahead.